Hello, my friends, and I hope you are having a fantastic day and a very happy Halloween to you. I saw this article on Twitter. New research on female video game characters uncovers a surprising twist. The twist is not actually surprising. It's something that I could have told you from the very beginning. But I am a female gamer, so I already knew basically how I felt about all this stuff. I suppose that gave me a head start on this whole thing, and I didn't have to spend anybody else's money on research. This entire research project, or whatever they have going on here, really, if you ask me, is more of a female gamer's attempt to explain why she feels ways she doesn't think that she's supposed to feel, which is kind of funny to me. You see here, female gamers prefer playing as highly sexualized characters despite disliking them. And I did make a comment on Twitter regarding this, and I'm going to take a little bit of it back. What I said on Twitter is that women often feel that they have to say that they find sexualized portrayals of women to be a negative because they think that that's what they're supposed to say. Years of feminism have brainwashed women into thinking that a woman who is portrayed in a feminine, sexual manner is a bad thing because it might possibly please a man, instead of acknowledging the fact that those are actually healthy traits within a female, and what a man is finding attractive is a healthy female partner, as opposed to anything diabolical. But there's also the issue that I forgot about, jealousy. And a lot of women, even when looking at a character in a video game or a movie or something, have a tendency to feel jealous of a woman that looks better than they do. That's just an unfortunate portion of female psychology for some reason. And it could go back to the whole thing with feminism and basically tricking us into thinking the idea that someone looks that way means that they are in some way bad. But without thinking about it a little bit more, which I don't have the time to do in depth right now, I'm not ready to say that. I just know that it is in fact a problem in women. I find it amusing that it says this study sheds light on why, even in today's gaming landscape, character design matters. Well, what do you think gaming is? Of course character design matters. And how different types of interactions from watching to playing shape player perception. A character's sex appeal and strength both play a role in how players perceive them. Duh! But these perceptions shift depending on whether players are simply watching or actively engaging with the character. I don't understand why this was even necessary, because all of these things that you just explained, or that they've supposedly found out, are things that you can see just in basic human interaction. And the reason for that is when people observe each other, the way they look, the way they act, obviously affects how they are perceived. If you are someone who is apparently dirty looking, greasy, doesn't look like they take care of themselves, you're going to be negatively perceived. If you are someone who takes care of themselves, you're clean, you look healthy, you're going to be positively perceived. It might seem unfair to those who refuse to take care of themselves, but it's just the way human nature works. And the reason I said what I said earlier about this feels like a female gamer trying to figure out why she feels ways about things that she doesn't think she should is this part here. The study author, Teresa Lynch, says that she identifies herself among the women and girls who enjoy gaming, and understanding why these people enjoy games in spite of, or even because of, the challenges sexism presents in gaming is fascinating to me. Well, I can tell you why I enjoy gaming. I enjoy gaming because it's fun, because it's a chance to play another character outside myself and explore their story, enjoy some challenging mechanics that help take my mind off of whatever issues I'm dealing with in my actual life. It entertains me and exposes me to new concepts, generally in an entertaining way that doesn't cause me to just get pissed off. Even concepts that I don't necessarily agree with, I can deal with them because, for one, I know it's a game and it's not real. And for two, it's being presented in a manner that is easy to kind of vibe with, or even just entirely avoid if I don't want to engage with it. It's the same reason I love reading books, honestly, except for, obviously without the interactive part. It takes me away. It gives me a release, a relaxation. I get immersed in a story that entertains me, and hopefully mechanics that also challenge my mind. Because that's the one thing I think gaming has over reading for me, is that it's supposed to challenge me. I mean, reading can occasionally challenge me when someone misformulates a sentence or puts in a word I don't know. But gaming mechanics should challenge me generally in some way. I mean, it could be as simple as, how am I going to arrange these carrots in my cozy little garden that I have in this game? Or it could be, how am I going to defeat this boss that I have now been grinding for 3 hours? These are both equally pleasing to me. And honestly, I hate these kinds of things, because the way they think of gaming and the gaming community, how you can think this about a group and then count yourself among them, is boggling to me. It says before that bit about her being among the gamers, sexism pervades gaming. For example, game content overwhelmingly features male characters to the exclusion of central female or gender minoritized characters. Games that do feature female or gender minoritized characters often unfavorably stereotype and objectify these groups. In online gaming experiences, men and boys target women, girls, and gender minoritized individuals with sexist and harassing communication. No. I mean, there are some out there, but it's not the typical thing. So in regards to the actual research, because this is actually more of this isn't an actual article in the same way you normally think of an article. This is a breakdown of a psychological study. The way they did the study, some of their method, the group they used, which honestly, that's part that irritates me right off the bat. For the experiment 1, the impact of viewing female characters, in which their group merely looked at 4 different female characters with varying traits. They had a strong character that was very sexualized, a weak character that was very sexualized, a strong character that wasn't sexualized, and a weak character that wasn't sexualized. So kind of they felt that portrayed the gamut of females in gaming. However, their experiment included 239 undergraduate students from a communication program, with the majority of participants identifying as female. Now, my issue, for one, is that they're all undergraduate students, and 2, they're from a communication program. You're going to end up with a bunch of people who think the same way in general, as opposed to a wide variety of people, which, if you're going to do that kind of study, you should pull from a much larger selection of people, even if you don't have a larger group of people. That's just my opinion, though. Now, what they did find is that characters with high sexualization cues were consistently rated as more sexualized compared to those with low sex appeal. Hello, water's wet. Go figure. Oh, and additionally, characters designed with high strength cues were rated as more formidable, aligning with the study's well, of course it aligned with the study's expectations, because that's just obvious. I understand why to some degree they have to state the obvious within their study, because it's supposed to be a complete study in which they go through all the different variables. So sometimes when you are doing the sciences, and you're doing them correctly, you run into situations where your hypothesis tested true, and thus you have to state the obvious. Not necessarily wrong, it's just everything in this situation seems quite obvious to me. They were surprised, I am not. And to continue the lack of surprise for me, however, when a character combined high sexualization with high strength, participants perceived her as even more sexualized than characters with high sexualization alone. Now, the part I didn't mention, and probably should have, is that these characters were made using Soul Calibur 6. So they were customized according to what they thought these various things were. Now, of course, when you combined high strength with high sexual appeal, you're going to end up with more sexual appeal, mostly because men like women who can handle themselves. If they didn't, you wouldn't have many of the famous video game characters. Sheep and I were just naming off a whole bunch for the hell of it, because I was complaining about this article while I was reading it. Samus, Lara Croft, Jill, Claire Renfield, just so many women out there. Bayonetta, that are both strong and sexual, and they look strong and sexual. It's not just one or the other. It's the whole package. Now, I don't know why this line bothers me so much, but it really does. This aligns with the fighting fuck toy theory, which suggests that strength paired with sex appeal can reinforce objectifying impressions, heightening perceptions of the character as a sexualized object. And I guess it's because of what I was just talking about. You're not saying anything. Why is that surprising? Actually, on second thought, I guess they're not saying it's surprising, but You're not really saying anything with that. It's not really a huge discovery of any kind. And that it's not like there's anything wrong with it either. I have this feeling that, I don't have this feeling. I know that they perceive sexualization as a complete net negative. That for whatever weird reason, the idea of a man viewing a woman in a sexual context really makes these people upset. They think it's a bad thing. While it would be a bad thing if that's the only way they ever thought of them 24/7, which, it's probably 23/7 at the same time. The only time it's an issue is if you're dealing with a man who can't control his impulses. And most men to varying degrees are capable of that. There are those who are not able to, and there's a reason we lock those up. But it is a natural and normal impulse that as long as it's kept under control, there's absolutely nothing wrong with. Another part that just really struck me wrong, characters with high sexualization were viewed as more traditionally feminine, yet they were less liked, particularly by female participants. This part goes back to what I was saying about women and their issues with perceiving other women as competition. Now, here's the supposed surprising twist. Interesting gender-based differences emerged in character preferences. Female participants generally disliked highly sexualized characters, but were more likely to choose characters with high femininity traits typically associated with higher sexualization cues when given a choice. Male participants, on the other hand, gravitated toward characters that were strong, yet less sexualized, indicating gender-based preferences in the interpretation of character traits. I wasn't surprised by the fact that participants in our studies disliked the sexualized female characters, Lynch told SciPost. I think especially among younger generations who have grown up with social media and intuitively understand how media perpetuates impossible beauty standards, there's increasing scrutiny and critique around sexual objectification. I will say there is a right and a wrong way to do sexual objectification, but I will also very politely point out that characters aren't humans. They might be a human character, but they are not actually people. They do not have feelings. They cannot actually die. And sexually objectifying one doesn't actually hurt anybody. This idea that if someone sexually objectifies a video game character, it means they are then going to go out and sexually objectify every single woman in their life is bullshit. Lynch goes on to say, that said, I was surprised to see that in our first study, women still selected the most sexualized character when asked which character they would choose to play. It's important to remember that this character was also rated as the most feminine, so it's possible that women were just selecting the character they most identified with. However, this finding highlights why this research is so important. Lynch continued, if women are conflating sexual appeal with femininity, then can they dissociate these two concepts? And it's not up to women to dissociate these things. Femininity is sexually appealing to men. And there's nothing wrong with that. Again, it is a biological imperative. It is part of human nature. To try to separate the two is impossible. The things that are feminine about women are just naturally sexual. And if entertainment media like video games continue to portray female characters by emphasizing sex appeal, how does that shape expectations of women and women's value in society? It doesn't. It does to some small degree. But, I don't see anything wrong with expecting more women to be like Samus or Lara Croft. I think that's actually a good thing. Women should be strong and kick ass. I think Bayonetta's maybe a better example because she also has a happy family. Either way, there's nothing wrong with being sexual and strong. It's weird that this is even a conversation. All that was more about just people watching a character. They did, of course, go on to do another study where they actually had people playing the characters. This experiment involved 438 undergraduate students and had the same 4 characters, but instead of watching the pre-recorded clips, participants played as one of the 4 character types in a live simulated combat session. In other words, they played the game. Sometimes they really just complicate things for the fun of it. And so they played for 10 minutes and tried to beat the opponent character. In gameplay, participants rated high-strength characters as less traditionally feminine, a perception that became more pronounced when participants directly controlled the characters. This says this finding suggests that interacting with a formidable character can make players view them as less aligned with stereotypical femininity. Bayonetta is very sexual and very formidable. They balance each other out. But that's part of being a character or a well-written character, is you have multiple traits that balance each other out so that people don't just view you as one thing or another. And that seems to be another one of those things that people who view gaming from outside don't seem to understand, is that yes, when you are looking at that character on the screen, it is very easy to assume she is nothing but a sex doll. But when you actually play the game and you come to an understanding of the character, it's an entirely different situation. There's far more under what you can't tell a book by its cover is what I'm trying to say here, folks. And it goes for the same with a video game character. You can't tell it by its cover. Just because the character looks gorgeous doesn't mean you're going to like the character or even find her entirely attractive. It's important to remember that they are playing a fighting game, so they obviously haven't gone into the concepts of how personality affects the way sexualization is perceived as well as strength. It's actually not a terrible place to start with a study, starting with the basic visual and with the most basic of interactions between people and the character. It's, again, just really frustrates me. The fact that a lot of this is stuff that is already well known among gamers, but academics are often retreading over well-worn ground. They want to say strength cues also influenced participants' perceptions of warmth and competence. Characters with high strength were rated as more competent, suggesting an association between physical capability and perceived efficacy. However, these same characters were rated as less warm, indicating that formidable characters may be seen as less friendly or approachable, which is totally normal. Again, I mean absolute normal human psychology right there. Female participants viewed high-strength characters as more competent compared to low-strength characters, while this difference was not significant among male participants. Again, that actually makes sense. Being able to do more things physically is definitely more of a competency perception issue. The findings highlight that playing video games positions people with a different orientation to the content on screen. Again, Lynch told SciPost, it can involve you in a way that simultaneously makes you feel like you're part of the content and the game, that you are the character. So if you are a character that has attributes you appreciate and enjoy embodying, then you probably will experience some positive outcomes and interpret the experience similarly. Which, I mean, duh. Yeah, we've been saying that forever. It's why men like to play strong male characters. Believe it or not, it's actually why they like female characters. Strong, attractive female characters. Because while they don't have to be as strong as men, they still enjoy the positive traits that they see within those women, that not only can they identify with, but that they also might want to see in a partner. And as I said, the study is really very limited in a number of ways. I think the biggest issue is the pool of people it's pulling from. Undergraduates in college, especially in this day and age, all have a tendency to have a specific kind of mindset and a perception that doesn't necessarily give you a full view of what gamers might think. But at the same time, when you're doing these studies, you're always going to have some kind of limitation regarding the people that you can access for your content, or for your study. For me, it's frustrating because the idea of sexualizing or viewing a character as sexy, and it shouldn't be as much of an issue as they make it out to be. There are obviously points where you can cross a line. It's not like I'm saying absolutely anything goes. Every individual is going to have different limits in regards to that. But in the end, it's not really going to hurt anybody, especially not if you teach people the difference between reality and fantasy. When people are well grounded in reality and can understand that this game they may be playing isn't reality and that character isn't a real person, things go a lot better because it's just more simple. You don't have to worry about, well, is this video game character somehow going to affect the real people in my life, when it shouldn't. All that said, I wanted to talk about this, especially since, women in gaming is, well, I'm a woman in gaming, so I like to keep track of what they're saying about us. And more importantly, I want to address some of these things as I see them so that people realize there are still sane women out there and we're not all out here trying to confuse things more than the world already is. But let me know what your thoughts are down in the comments. I look forward to hearing them. Have a happy and safe Halloween. There is no stream tonight because I will be out with my boyfriend enjoying our anniversary. But I will catch you guys next week. There will be a poll regarding if we continue Dredge or go back to Baldur's Gate 3 or maybe do something else. There was something else I was looking at that maybe we want to do. But I'm curious to get your feedback on that, as well as read your comments. Thank you so much for watching this video. I really hope you enjoyed it. Please like, comment, subscribe, and turn on the notifications. If you really liked it, you can feel free to share it around, and I will catch you later.